Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the assignment notice on her tablet, reading it for the third time. The words hadn't changed. She was being transferred from the Xenobiology Research Division to creature monitoring duty. It felt like a demotion, but the pay grade remained the same. More puzzling was the location. Facility 7, a place she'd never heard of despite working for the Galactic Research Council for 8 years. The shuttle ride to Facility 7 took 6 hours through hyperspace. Sarah spent the time reviewing her new assignment files. The creature in question was designated Subject 47X, captured from a derelict ship drifting near the outer rim. The previous reports were frustratingly vague.
Highly intelligent, one noted.
Unpredictable behavior patterns, warned another. The creature had already gone through 5 different monitors in the past 3 months. As the shuttle docked, Sarah gathered her belongings and stepped onto the station platform. Facility 7 was smaller than she'd expected. More like an advanced research outpost than a major installation. Commander Vex, a tall Centaurian with silver skin and multiple arms, greeted her at the airlock. Dr. Chen, welcome to Facility 7, Commander Vex said, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. I trust your journey was comfortable? Yes, thank you, Sarah replied, shouldering her bag. I have to ask, why was I specifically requested for this assignment? My background is in plant xenobiology, not creature monitoring. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked in what Sarah recognized as the Centaurian equivalent of a grimace. The creature has proven difficult. It responds poorly to our standard monitoring protocols. We believe a human perspective might be beneficial. They walked through sterile corridors lined with observation windows. Sarah glimpsed various alien specimens in containment cells, some floating in specialized atmosphere tanks, others in gravity-neutral chambers. The facility was clearly designed to house a wide variety of non-standard life forms. What exactly makes this creature so difficult? Sarah asked as they approached a secured section marked with warning symbols she didn't recognize. You'll understand soon enough, Commander Vex replied cryptically. He stopped at a heavy door marked with biometric scanners. This is your monitoring station. The creature is beyond that observation wall. Sarah pressed her palm to the scanner and waited for the green light. The door hissed open, revealing a compact control room filled with monitoring equipment. Banks of screens showed various angles of the adjoining containment chamber. She approached the main observation window and looked into the creature's habitat. The chamber was large, designed to accommodate a being roughly humanoid in size but clearly not human. The creature sat in the center of the room on what appeared to be a makeshift nest of collected materials. Fabric scraps, pieces of metal, and what looked like parts from dismantled monitoring equipment. The creature itself was unlike anything Sarah had encountered in her years of xenobiological study. It stood about 4 feet tall with pale, translucent skin that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Its features were vaguely humanoid but elongated, with large dark eyes that held an unmistakable intelligence. Thin appendages that could be arms or tentacles emerged from its torso, constantly moving and manipulating objects in its environment. What struck Sarah most was the creature's behavior. It wasn't pacing or displaying signs of distress like most captive specimens. Instead, it appeared to be building something, arranging its collected materials with obvious purpose and concentration. Has anyone tried communicating with it? Sarah asked, settling into the monitoring chair. Commander Vex's translator crackled with static. Multiple attempts. It doesn't respond to standard galactic common, mathematical sequences, or pictographic communication. The previous monitors have reported that it occasionally makes sounds, but our linguists can't determine if it's attempting communication or simply expressing emotion. Sarah studied the readouts on her screens. The creature's vital signs were stable, its brain activity remarkably high. What about its origins? The report mentioned a derelict ship. The vessel was of unknown design, badly damaged when we found it. Most of the ship's systems were offline. We found the creature in what appeared to be a hibernation pod. It's been awake for 6 months now. Any other survivors? None. The ship appeared to have been adrift for some time, possibly years. Sarah watched as the creature carefully positioned what looked like a piece of circuitry into its growing construction. The movement was precise, deliberate. This wasn't random behavior. It was engineering. I'd like to review all previous interaction logs, Sarah said. And I want to try a different approach. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked again. Dr. Chen, I must warn you. The creature has a history of violent outbursts when approached. The monitoring booth is equipped with emergency protocols for a reason. I understand, Sarah replied, but she was already forming plans. Her years studying plant xenobiology had taught her patience and observation skills that might prove useful here. Plants couldn't tell you what they needed. You had to watch, learn, and adapt your approach. Over the next several hours, Sarah observed the creature's patterns. It worked on its construction project for periods of approximately 90 minutes, then rested for 30. During rest periods, it would examine the walls of its chamber, running its appendages along surfaces as if searching for something. It showed particular interest in the areas where monitoring equipment had once been mounted. The previous monitor's logs painted a picture of increasing frustration. Attempts to remove the creature's collected materials had resulted in what the reports described as aggressive defensive behavior. Efforts to introduce new objects for study had been met with indifference or outright rejection. As her first shift drew to a close, Sarah made a decision that would have horrified her predecessors. Instead of following standard monitoring protocol, she activated the chamber's communication system, not to broadcast to the creature, but to listen more carefully to the sounds it made. The creature was humming. It was a low, melodic sound that rose and fell in complex patterns. Sarah activated her recording equipment and began to analyze the audio. The patterns weren't random. They repeated, varied, and seemed to respond to the creature's activities. When it worked on its construction, the humming became more intricate. During rest periods, the sounds simplified but maintained rhythmic structure. This wasn't emotional expression or random vocalization. This was music. And if it was making music, it was capable of abstract thought, creativity, and possibly communication, far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. Sarah leaned back in her chair, excitement building. Tomorrow she would try something no previous monitor had attempted. She would try to sing back. Sarah arrived early for her second shift, carrying a small recording device and a determination that surprised even her. She'd spent the night analyzing the creature's musical patterns, finding mathematical relationships that suggested intentional composition rather than random sound-making. Commander Vex intercepted her at the monitoring station door. Dr. Chen, I've reviewed your preliminary report. You believe the creature is attempting musical communication? I think it's doing more than attempting, Sarah replied. The harmonic structures are too complex to be accidental. This creature understands melody, rhythm, and even what appears to be emotional expression through tonal variation. Fascinating but irrelevant, Commander Vex said firmly. Your job is to monitor its physical condition and behavioral patterns, not to engage in theoretical communication experiments. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but privately disagreed. The creature's behavior patterns were directly related to its attempts at communication. Understanding one required understanding the other. Once Commander Vex left, Sarah settled into her monitoring position. The creature was already awake, working on what had now become an impressive construction. The structure resembled a complex geometric sculpture, but certain elements suggested functionality. Curved pieces that might channel sound. Reflective surfaces positioned at specific angles. Sarah activated her recording equipment and played back some of the previous day's captured humming. The creature immediately stopped its work and turned toward the observation window. For the first time since Sarah had arrived, it approached the barrier separating them. The creature placed one of its appendages against the transparent aluminum and began to hum again. The sound was different this time, more deliberate with clear pauses as if waiting for a response. Sarah took a breath and activated the chamber's communication system. Instead of speaking, she hummed back a simple melody, a lullaby her grandmother had sung to her as a child. The effect was immediate and startling. The creature's large eyes widened and it began moving its appendages in rapid, excited patterns. It hummed back, incorporating elements of Sarah's melody but transforming them into something more complex. Incredible, Sarah whispered, recording everything. This was definitely communication, and the creature was a remarkably sophisticated participant. Over the next hour, they exchanged melodies. The creature proved to be an excellent listener, often incorporating and improving upon Sarah's simple tunes. When Sarah hummed something particularly pleasing, the creature would repeat it multiple times as if memorizing it. Then something unexpected happened. The creature began to accompany its humming with sounds that weren't musical, clicking, whistling, and soft vocal elements that almost sounded like attempts at words. Sarah leaned forward, listening intently. The sounds were coming in patterns, grouped with the musical elements. The creature wasn't just making music. It was trying to create a language that combined melody with more traditional vocal communication. "Hello?" Sarah said softly into the communication system. Speaking the word clearly and slowly, the creature tilted its head, a remarkably human gesture. It made a sound that was almost he-oh, but not quite, close enough to be recognizable as an attempt at mimicry. Sarah's heart raced. First contact protocols should be engaged immediately. This was no ordinary creature. This was clearly a sentient being attempting to learn human language. But something held her back. The creature's file mentioned violent outbursts, rejection of standard protocols, and problems with previous monitors. What if those problems had stemmed from approaching the being as a test subject rather than as an individual? Instead of calling Commander Vex, Sarah continued her patient interaction. She pointed to herself and said Sarah several times. The creature watched carefully, then made sounds that resembled sa-ah. Encouraged, Sarah pointed to the creature and waited. After a moment, it made a complex series of sounds that were clearly meant to be its name, though Sarah couldn't hope to reproduce them accurately. "I'll call you Echo," Sarah said, "because you're so good at learning sounds." The creature, Echo, seemed pleased with this development. It began pointing to various objects in its chamber and making questioning sounds, clearly asking for the names of things. Sarah found herself conducting an impromptu vocabulary lesson through the observation window. When Echo pointed to its construction project and made questioning sounds, Sarah studied it more carefully. "I think that's art? Or maybe a tool of some kind?" Echo's response was enthusiastic humming combined with sounds that might have been agreement. It returned to its work, but now it was clearly showing off, demonstrating how different parts of the structure work together. Sarah realized with growing excitement that Echo wasn't just building randomly, it was creating a device. The curved elements were shaped to amplify and direct sound. The reflective surfaces were positioned to create acoustic effects. Echo was building a musical instrument. "You're an artist," Sarah said with genuine admiration, "and an engineer." Echo paused in its work and looked directly at her. For a moment their eyes met through the observation window, and Sarah felt a connection that transcended species barriers. This was a creative, intelligent being who had been treated as a specimen for months. No wonder it had been hostile to previous monitors. The rest of Sarah's shift passed quickly. Echo demonstrated its instrument, creating hauntingly beautiful sounds that resonated through both their chambers. Sarah found herself humming along, and Echo seemed delighted by the collaboration. When Commander Vex arrived for the shift change briefing, Sarah faced a dilemma. Standard protocol demanded she report the successful communication attempts immediately, but she knew what would happen. Teams of linguists and xenopsychologists would descend on Facility 7, and Echo would become a subject to be studied rather than an individual to be understood. "Any significant developments to report?" Commander Vex asked, reviewing the day's monitoring data. Sarah hesitated. "The creature's behavior patterns continue to be complex. I believe extended observation will be necessary to understand its needs fully. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the complete truth either." Sarah was buying time, hoping to establish a stronger foundation of trust with Echo before exposing their newfound communication to the full weight of official scientific attention. Commander Vex nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Your approach appears to be less stressful for the creature than previous methods. Continue with your current monitoring protocol." As Commander Vex left, Sarah looked back through the observation window. Echo was watching her, and somehow she was certain it understood the complexity of their situation. They had found each other across the vast gap between species, but their connection was fragile. One wrong move could destroy the trust they were beginning to build. Tomorrow, Sarah decided she would try to teach Echo more human words. And maybe, just maybe, Echo could teach her something about the remarkable species that had created such beautiful, complex art in the depths of space. By the third day, Sarah had established what could only be described as a routine with Echo. She would arrive early, bringing small items from the station's general supplies. Nothing that could be construed as contamination. Just simple objects that might interest an intelligent being. A small mirror. A piece of fabric with an interesting texture. A metal stylus. Echo had proven remarkably adept at learning human words. Their vocabulary was growing daily, though Echo's pronunciation remained charmingly imperfect. More importantly, Echo was beginning to combine words into simple phrases. Sarah good, Echo would say when she arrived. Echo happy Sarah here. The grammar was basic, but the emotional content was unmistakable. Sarah found herself looking forward to their daily interactions more than she cared to admit. On this particular morning, however, something was different. Echo wasn't working on its musical instrument or arranging its collection of objects. Instead, it sat in the center of its chamber, perfectly still with its large eyes fixed on the observation window. "Good morning, Echo," Sarah said through the communication system. "Sarah," Echo replied, but the tone was subdued. "Echo, sad?" Sarah frowned. This was the first time Echo had expressed negative emotion directly. "Why are you sad, Echo?" Echo pointed to itself, then to the walls of its chamber. "Echo, prison?" Echo alone long time. The simple words hit Sarah harder than she'd expected. She'd been so focused on the scientific marvel of their communication that she'd temporarily forgotten Echo was essentially a captive, a highly intelligent captive who was now able to articulate its feelings about that situation. "Yes," Sarah said quietly. "It is like a prison." "I'm sorry." Echo's expression seemed to brighten slightly at her honesty. "Sarah, sorry, good. Sarah, not like others." "What others, Echo?" Echo made a series of sounds that Sarah had learned indicated frustration or distress. "Others poke Echo, take Echo things." "Others afraid." Sarah felt a surge of anger on Echo's behalf. The previous monitors had clearly treated Echo as a specimen rather than a sentient being. No wonder there had been violent outbursts. Echo had been defending itself against what it perceived as hostile actions. "I won't poke you," Sarah promised. "And I won't take your things unless you say it's okay." Echo stood and approached the observation window. "Sarah different." "Sarah sing, Sarah listen." "Yes, I try to listen." "What would you like to tell me?" What followed was the longest conversation they'd yet had. Echo's language skills were improving rapidly, and it began to share fragments of what Sarah realized was its personal history. Echo spoke of traveling among the stars with others of its kind, of creating music that could be heard across vast distances, of a ship that became broken and cold. "Echo family gone," it said with unmistakable sadness. "Ship broken. Echo sleep long time. Wake up here." Sarah felt her throat tighten with emotion. Echo was a refugee, possibly the sole survivor of its species. The creature that had been labeled as dangerous was actually grieving. "I'm very sorry about your family," Sarah said. "That must be terrible." Echo nodded, a gesture it had apparently learned from watching humans. "Echo miss music with family. Here. Echo make music alone." An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. "Echo, would you like me to make music with you?" Echo's entire posture changed, becoming animated and excited. "Sarah make music with Echo?" "Yes, yes." What followed was the most beautiful musical session of Sarah's life. Echo's instrument proved capable of incredibly complex harmonies, and Sarah found herself singing melodies that seemed to emerge spontaneously from their collaboration. Their music filled both chambers, creating something that was neither fully human nor fully alien, but entirely wonderful. When they finally stopped, both were quiet for a long moment. "Echo," Sarah said softly, "I need to tell you something important." Echo tilted its head attentively. "There are others here who want to study you. They think you might be dangerous." Echo's expression became serious. "Echo not dangerous." Echo scared? "Others make Echo scared." "I know," Sarah said, "but they don't understand that yet. If I tell them you can talk, many more people will come. They'll want to ask you questions, maybe run tests." Echo was quiet for a long moment. When it finally spoke, its words surprised Sarah with their wisdom. "Sarah tell others when Echo ready? When Sarah thinks safe." The trust implicit in that statement took Sarah's breath away. Echo was willing to let her decide when to reveal their communication, trusting her judgment about when it would be safe. "Yes," Sarah promised. "I'll tell them when I think it's best for you." Echo trusts Sarah, Echo said simply. "Sarah is—" "What word, friend?" "Yes," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm your friend." Echo began humming again, but this time it was a melody Sarah recognized, a variation of the lullaby she'd first hummed to it. Echo had been thinking about their initial communication, developing it into something more complex and beautiful. As the day progressed, their conversation became more sophisticated. Echo began asking questions about human culture, about life on other worlds, about Sarah's own experiences. In return, it shared more about its own people, a species that had apparently mastered both space travel and complex musical communication. Echo people make song maps, it explained. Music tells story of where to go in stars. Sarah realized she was learning about a form of navigation that was entirely foreign to human experience, using music to encode spatial and temporal information for interstellar travel. Your people sound amazing, Sarah said. I wish I could have met them. Maybe someday, Echo said with what seemed like hope. Maybe other Echo people still somewhere. Maybe find each other. That evening, as Sarah prepared to end her shift, Echo said something that would stay with her for a long time. Sarah, good person. Echo, lucky find Sarah. Sarah, like... Echo paused, searching for the right word. Like family now? Sarah looked at this remarkable being that had been categorized as a dangerous creature, that had been poked and prodded and isolated, but had somehow retained enough trust to reach out to her with friendship and hope. Yes, Echo, she said, like family. As she left the monitoring station that night, Sarah knew her relationship with Echo had crossed a line from professional to personal. She also knew that eventually, she would have to decide how to use that relationship to protect Echo from a system that saw it only as a subject for study. But for now, it was enough that Echo was no longer alone. Sarah's fourth week at Facility 7 began with an unwelcome surprise. As she approached the monitoring station, she found Commander Vex waiting with Dr. Kellyan, a xenopsychologist from the main research division. Sarah's stomach dropped. She'd been dreading this moment. Dr. Chen, Commander Vex said, Dr. Kellyan is here to conduct a comprehensive behavioral assessment of Subject 47X. Your monitoring reports have indicated unusual patterns that require expert analysis. Dr. Kellyan was a tall, thin woman with silver hair, and the intense gaze of someone accustomed to reducing complex behaviors to data points. Dr. Chen, I've reviewed your files. The creature's stress indicators have decreased significantly under your monitoring. However, some of your observations seem anthropomorphic. We need to ensure scientific objectivity is maintained. Sarah forced herself to remain calm. Of course. What specific areas would you like me to focus on? We'll start with standard response testing, Dr. Kellyan said, producing a tablet filled with testing protocols. I want to see how the creature reacts to various stimuli under controlled conditions. As they entered the monitoring station, Sarah saw Echo immediately notice the presence of a stranger. Its posture became more cautious and it moved to the far side of its chamber. Interesting, Dr. Kellyan noted. The creature shows clear awareness of personnel changes. Begin with auditory stimulus testing. Sarah's heart sank as she realized what was about to happen. Dr. Kellyan activated a series of harsh, discordant sounds through the chamber's speakers, the standard protocol for testing reaction to audio stress. Echo's response was immediate and heartbreaking. It covered what Sarah had learned were its auditory organs and curled into a defensive posture, humming frantically in what Sarah now recognized as distress. Stop, Sarah said firmly. This is causing unnecessary stress. On the contrary, Dr. Kellyan replied, making notes on her tablet. This is providing valuable data about the creature's sensory processing and fear responses. Echo looked toward the observation window, and Sarah could see confusion and betrayal in its large eyes. It made soft sounds that Sarah knew were attempts to communicate, but Dr. Kellyan dismissed them as vocalization under stress. Let's proceed to tactile response testing, Dr. Kellyan announced. Sarah watched in horror as mechanical arms descended from the chamber ceiling, tools she'd never seen activated before. They were designed to prod and manipulate a test subject while maintaining researcher safety. No, Sarah said, standing up. This is wrong. The creature isn't just a test subject, it's intelligent. It can communicate. Dr. Kellyan paused, raising an eyebrow. Dr. Chen, I think your extended isolation monitoring this creature has led to some projection of human traits. This is exactly why we rotate monitors regularly. Listen to me, Sarah said urgently. The creature can speak. It understands Galactic Common. It has a name for itself and it's been trying to communicate with previous monitors for months. Dr. Chen, Commander Vex interjected, these are serious claims. If the creature possessed genuine communicative abilities, surely previous monitors would have noted this. Echo, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly agitated as the mechanical arms moved closer. It began making the sound Sarah knew meant Sarah help, and Echo scared. It's asking for my help, Sarah explained desperately, and it's saying it's scared. Please, just let me demonstrate. Dr. Kellyan looked skeptical but gestured for Sarah to proceed. Very well. Show me this alleged communication. Sarah activated the communication system. Echo, she said gently. It's okay. I'm here. Echo immediately focused on her voice. Sarah, others heard Echo. The change in the room was immediate. Dr. Kellyan's tablet nearly slipped from her hands and Commander Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly in surprise. What did it just say? Dr. Kellyan whispered. It asked if the others were going to hurt it. Sarah replied. Echo, these are other humans. They want to understand you better, but they don't know how to talk to you yet. Echo looked directly at Dr. Kellyan, and its next words were clear and unmistakable. Hello, new human. Echo is happy to meet you. Dr. Kellyan sank into a chair, her scientific composure cracking. This is first contact with a genuinely sapient alien species. Why wasn't this reported immediately? Sarah took a deep breath. Because Echo asked me not to. It's been treated as a test subject for months and it was scared. It needed time to trust that not all humans would hurt it. Commander Vex was speaking rapidly into his communication device, undoubtedly calling for higher authority. Sarah knew their quiet days of musical conversations and growing friendship were about to end. Sarah, Echo said softly. Many humans coming now? Yes, Sarah replied honestly. Many humans will want to talk to you now. Echo was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised everyone in the room. Echo ready now. Sarah taught Echo that some humans good, maybe other humans good too. Dr. Kellyan had recovered enough to lean forward. Echo, is that your name? Can you understand that we're scientists? We want to learn about you, but we don't want to hurt you. Echo nodded. Echo understand? Echo scientist too, in Echo way. Echo study human music, human words. Very interesting. You've been studying us? Dr. Kellyan asked, fascination replacing her clinical detachment. Yes, Echo replied. Humans very complex. Make beautiful sounds, but also scary sounds. Sarah teach Echo difference. Over the next hour, as word spread through Facility 7 and beyond, Sarah watched Echo handle first contact with remarkable grace. It answered questions about its species, its technology, and its experience with patience and intelligence that impressed everyone who spoke with it. But the most remarkable moment came when Dr. Kellyan asked Echo what it thought about humans based on its observations. Echo was quiet for a long time before responding. Most Echo observations about humans come from Sarah. Sarah kind, patient, make music. Sarah treat Echo like person, not thing. If Sarah is example of humans, then humans are good people. Dr. Kellyan looked at Sarah with newfound respect. Dr. Chen, you may have just determined how humanity's first contact with another sapient species will be remembered by history. But Echo wasn't finished. Sarah is Echo's family now. When many humans come, Sarah still be Echo's special human? The question hung in the air, touching on issues of protocol, xenodiplomacy, and the simple emotional bond between two unlikely friends. Always, Sarah promised. And she meant it. As the day wore on and more officials arrived at Facility 7, Sarah realized that her role was changing from monitor to translator, from scientist to advocate. Echo had taught her that intelligence and emotion could exist in forms completely different from human experience, and she had taught Echo that not all strangers were threats. Together, they were about to change how two species understood each other, and it had all started with a simple willingness to listen to someone else's music. Within 48 hours, Facility 7 had transformed from a quiet research outpost into the most important diplomatic location in known space. Sarah found herself thrust into a role she'd never imagined. Humanities, primary liaison with the first confirmed sapient alien species. Admiral Harrison of the Galactic Council had arrived with a full diplomatic team, linguists, xenobiologists, and enough security personnel to make Sarah nervous. But what worried her most was how Echo was handling the sudden attention. Sarah, Echo said during one of their brief private moments between official meetings, So many humans now. Echo sometimes scared, but Echo remember Sarah words. Some humans good. How are you feeling about all this? Sarah asked, noting the strain in Echo's usually musical voice. Echo tired, it admitted. Many same questions. Many humans want Echo to show Echo music, Echo building, Echo memories. But Echo happy too. Maybe find way to find other Echo people. That was the hope driving much of the frantic activity. Echo's species, which it called the Resonari, had apparently been spacefaring for centuries. If they were still out there, establishing contact could be the beginning of a larger galactic community. Admiral Harrison entered the monitoring station, his expression serious. Dr. Chen, we need to discuss Echo's living situation. The current containment setup is no longer appropriate for a diplomatic contact. Sarah had been dreading this conversation. What are you proposing? We're preparing quarters more suitable for a guest rather than a specimen. Echo will have more space, better amenities, and controlled access to interact with our research teams. And freedom to leave? Sarah asked pointedly. Admiral Harrison hesitated. Dr. Chen, you must understand our position. Echo possesses technology and knowledge that could be vital to human development. We can't simply allow it to depart. Through the observation window, Sarah could see Echo working on a new construction project. Over the past few days, it had built what appeared to be a communication device using salvaged materials from the facility. Echo had explained it was trying to send a message to any Resonari ships that might be in the area. Admiral, Sarah said carefully, Echo isn't a prisoner or a resource to be exploited. It's a sapient being who deserves the same rights we'd want for ourselves in a similar situation. I understand your attachment, Dr. Chen, but he was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication system. Echo was requesting to speak with them. Sarah, Admiral Human, Echo said, having quickly learned to identify rank insignia. Echo has important news. What is it, Echo? Sarah asked. Echo message device working. Echo received answer. The implications hit the room like a shockwave. Sarah saw Admiral Harrison's expression shift from diplomatic caution to intense interest. What kind of answer? Admiral Harrison asked, leaning forward. Resonari ship coming, Echo said simply. 3-day cycles. Echo family not all gone. Sarah felt a mixture of joy for Echo and apprehension about what this development would mean. A living Resonari ship approaching human space would change everything. Admiral Harrison immediately began speaking into his communication device, calling for emergency strategy sessions. Within minutes, the monitoring station was filled with military and diplomatic personnel all talking at once. Echo watched the commotion with what Sarah had learned to recognize as confusion. Sarah, it said quietly, humans very excited. This good thing or scary thing? Both, Sarah replied honestly. Echo, your people coming means wonderful things for you, but it also makes some humans nervous. Echo people peaceful, Echo said firmly. Resonari explore, make music, learn about universe. Not fight. Admiral Harrison overheard this exchange. Echo, we need to understand your people's capabilities. How many ships? What kind of technology? Are they aware of human civilization? Echo looked overwhelmed by the rapid-fire questions. Sarah stepped in. Admiral, perhaps we could approach this more systematically. Echo has been cooperative with all our requests, but it's clearly stressed by the intensity of these interactions. Dr. Chen is right, said Dr. Kellyan, who had become Echo's strongest advocate among the research team. We need to remember that we're dealing with an individual who has been isolated and traumatized. Pushing too hard could be counterproductive. Admiral Harrison nodded reluctantly. Very well. Dr. Chen, I'm designating you as Echo's primary liaison. All communications with Echo will go through you unless it specifically requests otherwise. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was now responsible not just for Echo's well-being, but potentially for the entire first contact process between humanity and the Resonari. Over the following days, Sarah worked carefully with Echo to gather information about the approaching ship. What emerged was a picture of a species that was indeed peaceful, but also far more technologically advanced than humanity. The Resonari had mastered faster than light travel centuries ago, and had developed a galactic positioning system based on musical harmonics. Resonari ships follow song paths through space, Echo explained during one of their sessions. Each star system has unique music signature. Echo's message included star music for this system, so family ship knows where to find Echo. How many of your people are on the ship? Sarah asked. Family pod is 7 Resonari. Ship can carry more, but this is rescue mission for Echo. The news that Echo's rescuers numbered only 7 was both reassuring and concerning. It suggested the Resonari weren't planning any kind of invasion, but it also meant they would be vastly outnumbered if tensions arose. Echo, Sarah said carefully, some humans are worried about what will happen when your people arrive. They're concerned about technology differences and whether our species can coexist peacefully. Echo was quiet for a long moment. Its appendages moving in patterns Sarah had learned indicated deep thought. Sarah, Echo understands human worry. When Echo first wake up here, Echo very scared of humans. Humans seemed big, strange, make scary sounds. But Echo learned that fear comes from not understanding. Sarah helped Echo understand that humans can be kind, patient, loving. Echo paused, then continued with something that sounded like wisdom far beyond its individual experience. Maybe Echo can help humans understand Resonari the same way Sarah helped Echo understand humans. Fear smaller when beings know each other. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her remarkable friend. Echo had transformed from a frightened, isolated creature into a diplomatic bridge between species. Echo, Sarah said, I think you might be the best diplomat either of our species has ever produced. Echo's coloring shifted to what Sarah had learned indicated pleasure and embarrassment. Echo just want families to be friends. Human family, Resonari family, all same want. Want to be safe, want to learn, want to make beautiful things. That evening, as Sarah prepared for what would likely be the most important few days in human history, she reflected on how much had changed since her assignment to monitor a dangerous creature. Echo had taught her that intelligence could take forms completely different from human experience, that communication could transcend species barriers, and that friendship could bloom in the most unlikely circumstances. But perhaps most importantly, Echo had shown her something profound about humanity itself. In Echo's eyes, humans weren't defined by their technology or their military might or their scientific achievements. They were defined by their capacity for kindness, their willingness to listen, and their ability to see beyond their own fears to recognize the worth of others. As she looked through the observation window at Echo, who was humming softly while putting finishing touches on its communication device, Sarah realized that their friendship had become something larger than either of them had intended. It had become a template for how 2 completely different species might learn to understand and care for each other. In 3 days, that template would face its ultimate test. But for now, Sarah was content to listen to Echo's music and know that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Sarah, Echo said suddenly, looking up from its work. When Resonari family arrives, will Sarah still be Echo's special human? Always, Sarah replied just as she had weeks ago. No matter what happens, we're family now. Echo's humming grew warmer and more complex, incorporating melodies from their very first musical exchange. It was a song of friendship, hope, and the belief that understanding was always possible between beings willing to listen to each other's hearts. As Sarah listened to that beautiful, alien music, she knew that whatever the future held for humans and Resonari, it would be built on the foundation she and Echo had created together, a foundation of trust, patience, and the radical idea that every intelligent being deserved to be treated with dignity and kindness. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place. The Resonari ship arrived exactly when Echo had predicted, materializing in the outer system with technology that defied human understanding of physics. It appeared as a graceful, crystalline structure that seemed to sing as it moved through space, its hull resonating with harmonics that human sensors could detect, but not fully comprehend. Sarah stood beside Echo in the newly constructed meeting chamber, aboard Facility 7, watching the approach on the main viewing screen. Echo's entire being seemed to vibrate with excitement and something Sarah could only describe as homesickness. Echo's family, Echo whispered, its voice filled with emotions too complex for its still developing human vocabulary. Admiral Harrison commanded the human delegation from a position that balanced welcome with caution. The past 3 days had been filled with frantic preparations, protocol discussions, and contingency plans for every possible outcome. But now, faced with the reality of actual contact, everyone seemed to hold their breath. Echo, Admiral Harrison said, are you ready to facilitate first contact between our species? Echo turned to look at the assembled humans, its large eyes moving from face to face before settling on Sarah. Echo ready. But Echo want to say something first. The chamber fell silent. When Echo first wake up here, Echo very scared. Echo alone, family gone, humans seem dangerous. Echo think maybe Echo die alone in strange place. Echo paused, its coloring shifting through what Sarah had learned were expressions of gratitude and affection. But then Sarah come. Sarah listen to Echo music. Sarah treat Echo like person, not thing. Sarah teach Echo that humans can be kind. Echo moved closer to Sarah, a gesture that would have been impossible weeks ago when it feared all human contact. Now Echo family coming home, but Echo also have new family. Human family. Sarah family. Echo looked directly at Admiral Harrison. Echo want Resonari to know humans like Sarah. Humans who listen, who care, who make music together even when very different. Admiral Harrison nodded slowly. We're honored by your trust. Echo. We hope to prove worthy of it. The communication system crackled to life with sounds that were hauntingly beautiful. Complex harmonies that seemed to contain layers of meaning beyond mere words. Echo responded immediately, its voice blending with the transmission in ways that created music unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The conversation, for that's clearly what it was, continued for several minutes. Sarah watched Echo's body language change, becoming more animated and joyful with each exchange. Finally, Echo turned to address the humans. Resonari family very happy Echo safe. They want to meet humans who care for Echo. Family pod leader wants to speak with human leader and with Sarah. With me? Sarah asked, surprised. Sarah is Echo's bond family now. In Resonari culture, bond families speak for family member in new situations. Admiral Harrison looked uncertain about this development, but Echo continued before he could object. Family pod leader name is Harmony of Deep Stars, but Echo teach human sound name, Harmony. The next few hours were unlike anything in human history. Harmony and 6 other Resonari came aboard Facility 7 in a shuttle that seemed to be grown rather than built. Its organic curves housing technology that human scientists could barely comprehend. The Resonari themselves were variations on Echo's basic form, but each was unique in coloration and size. Harmony was larger than Echo, with skin that shifted through deep blues and purples, and appendages that moved with obvious authority and grace. But what struck Sarah most was the reunion between Echo and its people. The moment Echo saw Harmony, it began producing sounds of pure joy that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Harmony's response was equally emotional, and soon all 7 Resonari were creating a musical celebration that filled the meeting chamber with indescribable beauty. When the reunion music finally ended, Harmony approached the human delegation. Its voice, when it spoke in carefully pronounced galactic common, was like hearing a symphony attempt conversation. I am Harmony of Deep Stars, pod leader and family voice for these Resonari. We are grateful beyond words for the care you have given our lost one. Admiral Harrison stepped forward. We're honored to meet you, Harmony. I'm Admiral Harrison, representing the Galactic Council of Human Worlds. Harmony's attention, however, moved quickly to Sarah. You are Sarah, the one who sang with our lost child when it was alone and afraid. Sarah felt the weight of the moment. Yes, Echo is very special to me. Taking care of it, taking care of Echo, has been the most important work of my life. Echo has told us much about you through the Bond songs, Harmony said. In our culture, one who cares for a lost child becomes family. You are welcome among the Resonari as long as the stars sing. What followed was a cultural exchange that would reshape both species' understanding of the universe. The Resonari shared their musical navigation techniques, their organic technology, and their philosophy of exploration through harmony rather than conquest. In return, humans offered their mathematical approaches to science, their literature and visual arts, and their diverse perspectives on existence. But the most significant moment came when Admiral Harrison asked the question everyone had been wondering about. Harmony, your technology is clearly far advanced beyond ours. Why do you seem so interested in peaceful contact rather than other possibilities? Harmony was quiet for a moment, then gestured toward Echo and Sarah, who were sharing one of their musical conversations nearby. Because that, Harmony said simply, is who you are. Echo was lost, afraid, alone. Your Sarah could have treated Echo as a thing to be studied, a specimen to be catalogued. Instead, she offered kindness, patience, and friendship. She sang with our child when it needed comfort. Harmony's coloration shifted to deeper, more solemn tones. The Resonari have traveled among many worlds, Admiral Harrison. We have met species that would have dissected Echo to understand its biology. We have met species that would have imprisoned Echo to steal its knowledge. We have met species that would have destroyed Echo out of fear of difference. But you humans, Harmony continued, its voice growing warmer. You gave Echo music. You gave it a name it chose for itself. You gave it friendship when it had nothing else. This tells us everything we need to know about the heart of your species. Admiral Harrison looked towards Sarah and Echo, understanding dawning in his expression. You're saying that Sarah's treatment of Echo was a test? Not a test, Harmony corrected gently. A revelation. How a species treats the lost, the different, the vulnerable. This shows their true nature. Sarah showed us that humans are capable of great kindness. Echo's bond with her proves that humans can love across the vast differences between species. As the formal meetings continued over the following days, Sarah found herself in an unprecedented position. She was no longer just Echo's monitor or even its advocate. She had become the symbolic bridge between two species, representing the best of human nature to a people who would help determine humanity's place in the larger galactic community. But perhaps most remarkably, she remained simply Echo's friend. In quiet moments between diplomatic sessions, they still shared music, still exchanged stories, still found joy in each other's company despite the cosmic significance swirling around them. Sarah, Echo said during one of these peaceful interludes, Echo's family wants to invite human families to visit Resonari worlds. Echo wants Sarah to come too. I'd love that, Sarah replied, then paused. Echo, do you ever regret that I revealed our communication to the others? Echo considered this seriously. No regret. Echo lonely long time before Sarah. Echo scared of all humans before Sarah. But Sarah show Echo that some humans very good. Now Echo know many good humans, and Echo family safe and human family growing. Echo moved closer to Sarah, its appendages creating gentle patterns in the air. Echo has idea for Sarah. What's your idea? Maybe Sarah become ambassador? Help other humans and other Resonari understand each other? Echo and Sarah already good at this. Sarah looked at this remarkable being that had begun as an assignment and become a cherished friend, that had transformed from a specimen into a teacher, that had shown her the profound possibilities that existed when different species chose to see beyond their fears. Echo, she said, I think that's the best idea anyone's ever had. Echo's coloring brightened to the warm tone Sarah had learned meant joy and contentment. Sarah will always be Echo's boss, Dad, it said, using the phrase that had become their private joke about their unusual relationship. And you'll always be my extraordinary friend, Sarah replied. As they sat together in comfortable silence, watching through the viewing port as human and Resonari ships began the complex dance of interspecies cooperation, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a simple assignment to monitor a creature. It had become the foundation for a new chapter in galactic history. And at its heart, it was still just the friendship between two very different beings who had learned to listen to each other's songs.